Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Wellborn, and this is Faith Baptist Church Sunday School. It is currently Saturday, and I'm getting ready to go give blood at the blood drive at Faith Baptist Church. And it's raining outside, and I know Sunday's going to be rainy as well. But anyway, thanks for joining me for Sunday School. Let's look at Exodus and relationships. Last week we talked about Ananias and Sapphira. This week we're going to be talking about relationships and integrity. Especially, we are actually a little under a month until the elections. So there's been a lot of things said about politicians, and even with people in their relationships with each other, there are opinions and views and things like that. So the main focus of this lesson is to encourage us to think about we're all going to get on the other side of this. We're all going to get on the other side of the election. We're all going to be on the other side of covet and what happens with that. It's going to get better. Things are going to stabilize. Things are going to level out. It's just when. We don't know when, but we are going to get through to the other side. So we need to keep these relationships we have with each other as believers, strengthen each other, even if we disagree as far as political views or views on how the virus is being handled or whatever. We need to keep at the top of our priority our relationship with each other as believers, as Christians, and be strong with each other and help each other. So, looking at Exodus chapter 20, my allergies, by the way, I do not have COVID. I have ragweed. So, how many of you are suffering from ragweed right now? Yes. Happens every year. Actually, I kind of welcome the rain because it kind of washes the pollen out a little bit. Whenever we go through a dry spell like this and not a lot of rain, my allergies get worse. It does this every year. So, anyway, Exodus chapter 20, verses 15 through 16. Do not steal. Do not give false testimony against your neighbor. And I mean that's just simple. And for us, I don't think somebody's going to go out and say, I like that Buick. I think I want that Buick. I'm gonna, we're not going to go steal a car like that from a neighbor. But I know I've been to like Laughlin's and Pizza Vina and places like that. And I know at each location, one morning I was getting breakfast at Laughlin's. They didn't charge me hardly anything for it. And I brought it to the person's attention, and I said, goodness, that's awful cheap today. Whereas I could have said, great, thanks, bye. At Pizza Vino, there's been times whenever I've gotten food there, they've charged much less, and I'm thinking, did you leave off an entree? Oh, yep, was in a hurry. And so, not trying to brag about myself, but I'm just thinking about specific examples of, what could be considered stealing. If I'd willingly known they had left off an entree and I just walked out of there and paid much less, then what about that? Us as believers, if people know we go to church and we are Christians, if people know that, how about our actions? If people don't know, more importantly, how do our actions point towards Christ and the difference that being a Christian makes in our lives? So that's a simple commandment there in Exodus 20. Exodus 20:17, this goes a little further as far as our neighbors and people we live around. It says, do not covet your neighbor's house, do not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. I live in an area where not too far from here is a cattle farm. And on that cattle farm, they have a couple of donkeys. And if you know anything about coyotes and donkeys, they don't get along. And so donkeys are a good protection system for cattle, especially if you have calves and that sort of thing. So, there's several times I'll hear the donkeys and I'm like, that's pretty cool. They're doing their job, Do I want a donkey? Do I covet my neighbor's donkey? No, I don't. But I have another neighbor that lives down the street. They have a nice swimming pool. And that swimming pool is nice, and they have a great setup. They also have a nice screen porch on the back of their house. I look at that and I think, I'd like to have that. Not necessarily the donkey at the neighbor's house, but the swimming pool, and even more importantly, the nice screen porch, because I like screen porches. I'd like to have that. So, do I make it a focus to where, I stop tithing so I can save money to buy a pool and put a screen porch on the house? Do I obsess over it and say, no matter what, my goal is to have that? No. And I'm using kind of goofy examples, I know, but, those are things, when you get older in life, those are the things you might kind of covet, a screen porch. But those other things we see, folks that have newer vehicles. There's a guy at work that has a brand new GMC pickup truck. When I see that thing, I'm like, that's nice. Yeah, I'd like to have that. Would I like to have the payments involved with a $60-some thousand vehicle? I don't know. I mean, and again, you may be in a different point in life where you might say, that's a necessity, that's a need, that's my, what I need to get, and that's understandable. This fella had gotten a great deal, traded in a vehicle. He had one vehicle forever, and then finally got this. He's going to keep this thing forever too. So, it's not a bad purchase. It was a smart purchase. But then do I react, or do other people react when they see something and say, well, I've got to have that too? So think about that. It also makes it to where whatever you do have, you don't appreciate. A friend recently purchased a house back in August. She loves that house. And that's something that when you talk to her about it, it's just August, but still I see this person loving this house for a long, long time. And it's not the biggest house in the world. It's a nice house. It's comfortable. She loved it. And that's what matters. So, our perspective on life and how we view things, and more importantly, how content we are with things. Back when I taught the youth, I used to teach a lesson on comparing, and how, I studied marketing. I minored in marketing in college, and so I know what it's like whenever you go to pay for something at the grocery store or at Lowe's Hardware, and you see something there at the checkout aisle, and it's like, okay, point of purchase, you want to buy that, you grab that, batteries, gum, whatever, and they make you want to have something. Same thing with commercials, where it's okay, you shouldn't be satisfied with this. You can have the latest technology. This offers autonomous, the snooze feature, whatever. It can brew coffee all at the same time. I got to have it. I need to upgrade. And so with life, it makes us very unhappy. So this verse right here, Exodus 20:17, it hits on just a small little portion, and you might think, covet somebody's servant. I don't know anybody that has a servant. I don't think I want to know anybody that has a servant, but it's like in that time, people would look at other people and they'd say, gosh, they have it easy. Wow, they have nice stuff. I want that. And it would make them miserable with what they do have and what they've been blessed with. So count your many blessings, name them one by one, like the song says, but truly think about what you do have and how blessed we are. And, what are some practical steps we can take in preventing coveting in our lives? I've often talked about, like, Facebook, and I know there's so many things. I know TikTok now has surpassed Instagram with teenagers. I read that somewhere. So, there's always platforms. I guess if you're older like me, Facebook is still the option. Is MySpace still around? No, anyway. So, as soon as you pull it up, you might see somebody's vacation, somebody's spouse, somebody's house, somebody's car, whatever. And I've talked about this a bunch of times. Be careful when you get on Facebook, because immediately you can find yourself thinking, look at that, that looks so good. Whereas, that picture has been staged. It's been, that's probably the 20th picture they've taken of that one thing to try to get it right and then post it, in most cases. So anyway, caution about that, but that's one practical way we can avoid being unhappy with what we do have, by avoiding comparison. So Psalm 37, verses 1 through 6, here's some other scriptures that back this up. Do not be agitated by evildoers. Do not envy those who do wrong, for they wither quickly like grass and wilt like tender green plants. We're pretty soon heading towards the first freeze of the season. Typically, it's it's early November really for this area. I love flowers. I have tons of zinnias, tons of flowers everywhere. Whenever freeze comes, it's like, but it's also a good time to gather seed. Let the plants stay after they've been frozen. Let them sit, dry out a little bit, gather the seeds, and you can have flowers next year. But they only last for a season. Trust in the Lord and do what is good. Dwell in the land, live securely. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you your heart's desire. Commit your way to the Lord, trust Him, and He will act, making your righteousness shine like the dawn, your justice like the noonday. So many things I could put into this as far as what's happening right now if you just turn on, if you look at a device. I used to say, just cut on the TV, tape it. No, it's like you cut on a device anyway, we see things, and it gets scary. And for us, it looks like there's a lot of things that are changing. That it's especially as you get older, you're like, wow. But you live securely in the Lord. Whatever changes around you, if you are firmly planted in the Lord, then you will have peace. And that's one of the biggest things I try to seek is peace. You know me, like some smooth jazz and cut on the gas logs and drink some decaf coffee. That's peaceful. Well, more importantly than all that is knowing where my eternal destination is. I was talking to my Uncle Ken the other day, and he just randomly texted me and said, isn't it going to be wonderful when we are in heaven and we have peace and we see our loved ones and all the things we've read about in Scripture we know are true and have been fulfilled. And I read that, and I just thought, that's just a wonderful text. That was good to get that from Uncle Ken. But for us, yeah, so many evildoers, so many things we see. But we know if we read our Bible, read it daily. So how do we do that? Well, financially, like I talked about last week, tithing and giving offerings. Giving tithes once a week to a church, giving offerings, which are that amount above your tithes that you give, and I talked about this last week. That it's amazing how, and I'm not trying to say it's all of a sudden your financial worries are taken care of, because I've had financial worries plenty of times, but through giving a tithe, I know that God's going to take care of me. And again, I'm not trying to say, well, just have faith and things will just be okay. But in a sense, it's kind of like that. You're giving on faith, and you know that God's going to take care of you. And I'm 45, and I've seen God take care of me so many times. And again, there's been times where it's been like, oh gosh, several things are broken at once, and I need to have air at the house, and our water line's messed up, and I can't crank the car and the transmission. So it's like God's been good. God's been good. And again, commit your ways to the Lord and trust in Him. Read Scripture. Quote Scripture. Anytime you read Scripture and you memorize it, and for me, I type a lot, but if you can write it down, and I need to teach myself this is kind of a lesson to myself, write it down and memorize it. Anyway, that's the lesson for today. Don't covet. Don't steal. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't envy somebody. Don't want what they have. Just trust in the Lord. Keep tithing. Keep reading Scripture. Keep attending church, whether if you can do it safely in person, or if you can do it online somewhere, or if you're in a parking lot somewhere. Keep connected with your local church. Thanks, guys. Have a great Sunday.